It is 3:47 a.m. in the Luzon Strait. A commercial fishing trawler drags its anchor across the seabed, snags on a cable roughly the diameter of a standard garden hose, and keeps pulling. In the next 4 seconds, $10 trillion in daily financial transactions loses its physical pathway. Not metaphorically, physically. The swift messages that confirm sovereign overnight settlements stop moving. Terminal feeds across London, New York and Tokyo go dark mid-quote. A sovereign cloud region serving 400 million people completely drops off the reachable internet. This does not occur because a server cluster failed, or because a data center lost power. It occurs because the glass thread carrying its light pulses to the rest of the planet has been severed. This is not a hypothetical crisis scenario. It is a standard Tuesday. It happens on a rolling basis dozens of times every single year. The only reason your capital accounts and data networks have not felt the catastrophic friction of these events is built-in redundancy, a layer of redundancy that is significantly thinner than most professionals in finance or technology assume. By the end of this analysis, you will understand the structural reality of the modern economy. The exact maritime choke points where the vast majority of international data physically funnels through narrow corridors. The shockingly tiny, aging fleet of vessels that hold an absolute monopoly on fixing what breaks. And why satellite networks, despite a decade of heavy corporate marketing fluff, are physically incapable of replacing this underwater infrastructure. The global economy runs on a fragile glass wire lying on the ocean floor, and that wire cannot be substituted. Strip away the marketing branding and the abstract terminology of cloud computing. Subsea cable infrastructure is simple. It is the planet's nervous system. However, unlike a biological organism protected by bone, this global spinal cord is roughly as thick as a household extension cord. It is coated in a basic layer of steel wire, tar, and polyethylene. Inside that basic sheath sit a handful of glass fibers, each thinner than a human hair, carrying pulses of laser light at close to the speed of light itself. There are fewer than 500 of these active cables on the entire planet, yet they carry an estimated 95% of all intercontinental data. Every international voice call, every cross-border video stream, every microsecond market order, and every interbank settlement moves through a physical wire lying on the seabed, not through the sky. The obvious question asked by tech bro marketers is simple. Why not just route around this terrestrial fragility using satellite constellations? The answer is an unyielding matter of raw physical capacity, governed by the laws of physics, not corporate ambition. A single modern subsea fiber cable can carry multiple terabits of data per second. To understand that scale, imagine the combined data throughput of an entire Panamax container ship's cargo hold, delivered continuously every single second. A satellite constellation, even a dense low-Earth orbit network like Starlink, is closer to a fleet of delivery bicycles. They are individually fast and useful for last-mile delivery to a remote village or a disaster zone. But they are structurally incapable of moving bulk industrial freight at scale. You do not replace a container ship's logistical capacity with bicycles. You use the bicycles to fill the tiny gaps the ship cannot physically reach. The physics of bandwidth density makes this a permanent material limitation, not a temporary tech problem waiting on better software. When a cable is cut, the economic consequence is instantaneous. The global financial architecture relies on synchronous data validation. Correspondent banking networks like SWIFT require real-time handshakes to clear capital ledger entries. When the physical pathway disappears, automated high-frequency trading algorithms hit a hard fail-safe freeze to prevent unhedged settlement errors. The capital does not vanish, but the liquidity freezes. For an investment fund or a multinational bank operating on microsecond execution, a 4-second latency spike is functionally equivalent to an industrial blackout. Global data does not travel in a beautifully distributed, decentralized mesh across the globe. It funnels. Because laying thousands of miles of underwater wire is obscenely capital-intensive, consortia of tech monopolies and telecom giants route cables along the shortest, lowest-risk paths possible. This creates extreme geographic concentration. Consider the Luzon Strait, positioned between Taiwan and the Philippines. It is one of the densest, highest-stakes cable corridors on Earth, a narrow stretch of water carrying the vast majority of trans-Pacific traffic between the financial hubs of East Asia and North America. Look at the Red Sea corridor, running past Djibouti and up through the narrow Suez approach. This single body of water carries nearly all data traffic connecting Europe to the Middle East and India. At its narrowest point, this critical bottleneck is a mere 20 kilometers wide. Then consider the English Channel, the busiest shipping lane on the planet. It hosts a dense, tangled web of cables linking the United Kingdom to mainland European cloud infrastructure, forcing fragile wires to share water space with thousands of heavy commercial vessels every single day. These are not redundant, evenly distributed arteries. They are severe structural bottlenecks. Because these cables lie parallel to one another in narrow trenches due to seabed geography, a single localized incident can produce continental-scale disruption. If a heavy ship drags its anchor perpendicular across the trench, it doesn't just cut one cable. It can execute a cascading strike, tearing through 3, 4, or 5 separate international lines in a single afternoon. If you are the kind of viewer who demands a look at the physical infrastructure operating behind the global headlines, the raw engineering and capital constraints that govern modern geopolitics, rather than the sanitized version fed to the public, that is the exact niche this channel operates in. By subscribing to this network and dropping a comment below, you lock yourself into an ongoing, high-pressure analysis of the structural realities holding the modern economy together. We publish deep substance breakdowns twice every week, with absolutely zero filler. Join the Insight Network now. Let's return to the hardware. Popular culture and cinematic spy thrillers assume that subsea cable sabotage looks like a specialized military submarine executing a highly coordinated, stealthy underwater special forces strike. The operational reality is considerably less cinematic and considerably more embarrassing for a $10 trillion economic system. The single leading cause of subsea cable damage worldwide is basic commercial fishing and ordinary shipping activity, specifically commercial vessels dragging dumb iron anchors across the seafloor in shallow coastal waters. An ordinary commercial trawler anchor can be purchased legally for a few $100s. It is iron, it is completely dumb, and it possesses zero targeting capability. Yet, dropped in the wrong stretch of water, it will effortlessly catch a multi-million-dollar fiber-optic line buried under a few meters of soft sediment. The engineering reality is insultingly simple. A heavy, sharp iron object moving under immense mechanical tension against a fixed, fragile line under tension. One of them must win. It is never the cable. This represents the ultimate structural asymmetry of modern gray zone geopolitics. A $300 piece of scrap metal, deployed with zero hostile intent, zero coordination, and zero nation-state backing, can instantaneously take down data infrastructure carrying $10 trillion in daily global transaction flow. Here is where the structural fragility compounds into a near-total bottleneck. Fixing a severed subsea cable is not a matter of dispatching a local technician crew. It requires an incredibly specialized, custom-built cable ship. These vessels must locate a microscopic break at ocean depths measured in thousands of meters. They must deploy an unmanned ROV to cut the damaged line with hydraulic diamond-tipped saws under thousands of pounds of crushing hydrostatic pressure. Then, the ship must haul the severed ends up to the surface against immense gravity, pull them into a dust-free, floating cleanroom environment on board, and force human engineers to manually splice individual glass fibers back together, fiber by fiber, under brutal time pressure at sea. The entire global fleet, capable of executing this precise task, numbers in the low dozens, not hundreds. The ownership and operation of this critical fleet sits within a tiny, hyper-concentrated group of legacy firms. A tight, capital-intensive, aging industry that has completely failed to scale at the rate global data demand has exploded. Many of these specialized repair ships are decades old, relying on legacy propulsion systems and manual positioning hardware. Building a single new cable repair vessel requires years of engineering lead time and massive capital outlay. Because of this, there is zero commercial incentive for these private monopolies to overbuild the fleet during calm years. They keep the fleet size razor-thin to maximize corporate margins, until a cluster of simultaneous failures reveals exactly how close to total failure the system sits. When multiple breaks occur within the same geographic corridor inside a short window, an occurrence that happens far more frequently than the global shipping and insurance industries like to admit, the queue for a repair vessel lengthens from days into weeks. Because of complex maritime cabotage regulations and unpredictable territorial jurisdiction laws across different nations, a foreign-flagged repair ship can face aggressive bureaucratic friction or sit completely idle for weeks waiting for sovereign security clearance and specialized labor waivers while an entire digital economy bleeds out. This means a critical global financial hub or an entire sovereign national internet backbone can sit helplessly on a literal waitlist for an open repair slot. They are completely dependent on the availability and maintenance schedule of a private shipping monopoly that most of its citizens have never heard of, operating a handful of aging vessels that represent the absolute limits of global capacity to fix the wire our world runs on. None of this infrastructure vulnerability is the result of a hidden conspiracy. It is a cold, rational capacity and economic incentive problem. The cables are dirt cheap to accidentally damage, yet astronomically expensive to fix. The repair fleet remains dangerously small because building true structural redundancy into private maritime operations has never been commercially viable under normal operating conditions. The severe choke points remain because physical geography and capital deployment costs make alternate routing prohibitively expensive. The final result is a global financial system that boasts the illusion of modern decentralized cloud ubiquity, but rests on a single, brutally physical point of failure. It is not digital, it is not cyber, and it is not abstract. It is a single, garden hose-thick wire, lying on the dark ocean floor, waiting for a $300 piece of iron to drop from the sky. That is the hidden mechanism holding global finance together, and the permanent fault lines running through it. Next episode, we break down another piece of heavy industrial machinery the modern economy silently depends on. See you then!